Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Founder Files. Like anyone interested in entrepreneurship like me, we all love a good disruptor, especially someone that's going to be disrupting an oligopoly of an industry. And so for that reason, today I'm going to be chatting to the CEO and founder of Melon Mobile, Calvin Collett. Now, a lot of us may not have heard of Melon Mobile unless you are familiar with the founder space, maybe the tech startup ecosystem, maybe the telco space. But Melon Mobile is coming in to really disrupt the telco space and the main providers that we have within the industry. So obviously I'll let Calvin discuss everything about his business, but we really talk about the fact that he got from 0 to 47 people. He won't tell us the number of customers, but in 18 months, right? A very short amount of time, they're competing with an industry that's extremely competitive and very well established. But how he's at the point of raising his Series A now, he's proven product market fit and really looking to scale countrywide. We talk about how he managed to grow that quickly, how he got his sales and marketing right and really focused on that as the priority of the business. And he has this order of looking at sales and marketing, then tech, and only then afterwards see a telco company. So we get into the depth of his thinking and why that's important. He shares lessons around culture, and we talk about people and how important it is to value them, but he gets practical and examples of things that he's did in MTN, but also things that he's doing within his startup. And then also we talk about now in the current scaling journey and how he's doing so many things, like obviously expanding geographically around the country, building out into retail and physical instead of just digital, looking at how is it that they're forming partnerships with the likes of Lyft in order to be able to distribute around the country and through new customers. There's plenty, there's loads going on. And so from a scaling perspective, how he specifically is going about doing this to make sure that he can keep his mental health intact while scaling, there's some really cool little lessons in there that I won't spoil for you for now. But that's it from me for now. Without further ado, everyone, Calvin Collett. Welcome to the Founder Files, the podcast that's like eavesdropping on a conversation with a successful entrepreneur over a fireside chat. Join me, Cameron Coots, through this unique experience of unfiltered stories and insights from scaling founders around the globe as they share their ups, downs, and everything in between. Calvin, another man that has the courage to try and disrupt one of the oligopolies in South Africa, disrupting an entire industry through digital innovation. The CEO and founder of Melon Mobile. Welcome to the Founder Files.
Calvin, thanks for having me. I look forward to the chat.
Yeah, it's going to be great, man. I think getting anything in, literally just before we're clicking record, the complexity of B2C versus B2B is always an interesting one and a challenging one. And if you get it right and do it properly, it's great. But I think what you're doing takes a lot of courage. It's very, very difficult to try go and take on some of the big players head on. But I think that's what we're going to get into now.
Absolutely.
So just for the sake of our listeners, if they don't know about you or about Melon Mobile, just explain what the business and the business model is, please.
Cool. So we started 18 months ago. Specifically, so we're a mobile network. We're a mobile virtual network, means you run on other networks infrastructure, and MTN in this case specifically. But what makes us different is that our entire journey is digital. And we went out there to go and say, if you take mobile in South Africa, it's 30 years old this year, or last year, and nothing has changed. I mean, yes, you've gone from 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G, so technology has changed. But the way you sign up, the way you top up, etc., just hasn't changed. And, but we live in a very digital world where you can get groceries in 60 minutes. You can, order your favorite things on Takealot, Amazon, etc., and they arrive at your doorstep. Yet mobile, you have to go in store. You have to scratch, little cards at a fuel station and punch in these long-winded digits, etc. So it was saying, how do we take a product that has not been disrupted, that enables disruption? I always find that fascinating. Without the mobile phone, all of these other innovations and disruption would not have happened, right? So mobile is the big disruptor, but mobile itself has not been disruptive. So we went out to say, how did we go and do that? As I said, we're 18 months old, and we built a mobile network that is completely customizable. It's month to month. It's very simple to operate. You do it off the back of a web or app. And from sign up to activation is, depending on eSIM or physical SIM, between 5 and 10 minutes. So, we could sit here and activate a SIM card, be absolutely 100% up and running without the need to actually physically go in store or do any of that kind of stuff. So that's ultimately what we built, and we'll go through it in the journey in terms of like where are we in that process? What are we doing well? What are we learned, and what can we do better?
Okay, before I chat in terms of different topics, just want to go one level deeper on what you said. Just unpack to me what you mean by fully customizable. Because I mean, if I'm going to a telco and I'm a mobile provider, the usual kind of contract and situation is either kind of prepaid contract at the basic level, and then even from there is like there's certain packages. You get a certain number of minutes, certain number of SMSs, certain amount of data. That's kind of it, right? So like, why? What do you mean by customizability? But why the need for customizability?
So I think the first thing is, when we say customizable, we mean customizable. So, to your point, take a contract, you want the latest iPhone, but the latest iPhone comes with 500 minutes, 500 SMSs, and 5 gigs of data. You're like, well, listen, but I want 10 gigs of data and I want 200 minutes and I don't want SMSs as an example. Well, that's not an option, right? You take the package and that's the plan. On the prepaid side, everything's airtime based. So, you buy 50 rands worth of airtime and then you convert it to data or text or SMS or voice. And, it's just archaic. So what we did is we built a construct where you can build your own plan. So, I want 10 gigs, I want 200 minutes and 50 SMSs. And then next month you say, well, I need 3 gigs and 500 minutes because I need, I'm traveling, etc. So because it's month to month, you can change that plan as and how you want. The interesting thing though is, we really believe that this is going to be the biggest game changer. What we've learned and we've realized is that people have no idea what they utilize. Because if I had to ask you right now, Cameron, what is your utilization? There's a 99% chance you will not be able to tell me, because the current operators do not give you visibility of that. So unless you're actually tracking it or specifically looking at and monitoring it, you actually wouldn't have a clue. So what we found is that people are like, I'd love to build my own plan, but I have absolutely no idea what I utilize. So what we found is that they were taking our prepackaged plans, which makes sense. But now what we're slowly doing, so 18 months down the road, is because we have full visibility in our app. So we've got little dials that show, how much data, how much voice, and how much SMS you've got left and utilized. People are saying, okay, you know what, I can actually optimize this. So now they're going back and going for a pre-built plans and then onto this build your own customizable plan. So it's an interesting, once again, it's a big learning, right? You're changing the game, but you don't have the inputs to change the game as a consumer. So it's something that we've had to learn along the way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because that's if the promise is customizability, they're pointing out how long is a piece of string there.
Exactly.
Is it like you can customize it down to the gigabyte or to the megabytes, right? And then that's a completely different ballgame. So, Calvin, I mean, the fact that you keep bringing up the point 18 months is it's like I still obviously want to shout out to that point that it's unbelievable that you are only 18 months old as a company. Just to give some context, is like why you're here on a scale up podcast. Like, give me a sense of the scale that you're at now, and how you're in scale stage.
So look, I really think we've gone past all the things that typically would view us as a startup. We've figured out product market fit. We understand the market that we're in. We understand the app and the shortcomings. We've got the right product fit. We understand the technology. We're at a point now where we've got all the ingredients. We've mixed them. Now we need to scale this business. And it's now taking all of those learnings from the last 18 months and doing that. So, and this is always our focus, is to say, let's start slow, not spend too much money on marketing a brand. Important to build a brand and do marketing. So, and I think we've done that well. But at the same token, not to spend too much money, because if we got any of those things wrong, we didn't want it to be a massive crisis, right? So we've really got a nice ingredient mix. And now we need to take that and make sure every single South African knows about us. I mean, I think if you're going to ask the average person out there and most of your listeners on the podcast, you'll find less than 10% probably know who we are, all right? Unless they specifically follow a lot of the tech stuff and or sort of founder stuff, there's a good chance they won't know us. But as I say, that was part of the original plan to make sure that we got, it's if you go back to mobile, what are the key challenges that you've got out there, right? It's inflexibility, it's high prices, it's poor customer service.
The worst customer experience ever.
Worst customer experience. So we were very absolutely clear. We had to fix those things. And customer experience as an example, that's a difficult one to fix. I mean, you don't just fix that overnight. And especially when introducing a new product, which, most of the guys don't understand. It's a lot of education. It's a brand new segment that you're trying to, expose to consumers and help them understand what it looks like. So getting the customer experience and service aspect of this business was a challenge, but I really believe we've cracked it, right? I mean, if you look on Hello Peter, which typically is a complaint site, we've got a 5 out of 5 Hello Peter rating, which is unheard of. And in telco, it's just non-existent. If you look at our Google and Apple apps, sort of saying above a 4-star rating. So we've got those basic fundamentals right. And I think that's one of the key things that we focused on to build this business, is that how do we make sure that the brand, the marketing, their product, the customer experience, all of those things are right. And then to scale this. And we've ticked all of those boxes. So now we're saying, all right, cool. We've ticked the boxes. Now how do we go and scale this business and make sure that when you think of mobile and, we're not going to, people say, who's your target audience? We're not going to go after 100% of South Africa. It's not for everyone. But, we believe we can get up to 5% market share. And in a industry that's 200 billion rand a year and 101 million SIM cards. So, right at the top end, we say we can get up to 5 million SIM cards. So, it's saying, how do we get those 5 million SIM cards and then make sure that we keep those 5 million customers? So, and that's to answer your question in a roundabout way. That's the challenge, and that's what we're doing right now, is to say, how do we go and take this business from where we are? We are ahead of everyone else in terms of, especially in this digital space. We've got a brand. People are resonating with it. The customer service is good. We understand the product misfits and what we've done wrong there. We understand those things. It's not so, all right, taking all those learnings and turning this into pure growth. So that's the stage that we're in right now.
Yeah, and to your point, it's not just a pure growth from a scale of just acquiring new customers. It's to your point, it's got to retain them, right? I think thinking about scaling without thinking about retention is pointless. You're just going to drive yourself absolutely mad.
And especially with the month-to-month product, right? I think it was one of the bold things. A lot of people say, "Geez, but guys, everyone else is 24 months. So how are you going to retain a customer?" Well, it's doing the basics right. If our customer experience is amazing, our product set is up, and we're well priced. You don't have to be the cheapest, but well priced. Why would you leave? And we're proving that our hypothesis is right. So, we've got very, very low churn. So if we compare ourselves to the contracts of the networks with 24-month contracts, we've actually got lower churn on the contract side. So, we've got our churn under control, but it's back to the point. We're offering a product, and we actually put it this way, I think we're making promises that we are keeping. Let's say that. And underpinned is a product that people enjoy.
I just love that that's just the basic fundamentals of human nature. It's like if you make a promise and you keep it, especially in an industry that's dominated by a few players, it's like I love the simplicity of that's just how you win, right? It's like if you can make a promise and stick to it and manage these expectations, it's kind of not that hard. But it's nice to say that in theory. But even offline, we were chatting about the comparison to Discovery Bank, right? And the point there is that at least in the banking sector, we saw the disruption that no one really saw coming with Capitec, because it's an entire market segment that we thought was untouchable, and they proved us wrong. But then if you're going to be taking on direct market share from existing players from an existing market, pretty much the only way that you can beat there is because in these established industries, It's very difficult to truly compete on product. I think that obviously it makes a difference, but the only main way is going to actually be either through cost or customer experience. And I think specifically going digital and creating something that's extremely efficient with a good product, with a great customer experience, it's very easy to outcompete someone who's going to deliver something that's inefficient, even though it might be a great product, but it's very inefficient to be able to consume terrible customer experience. It becomes quite easy to be able to compete with that. And especially at a corporate level of complexity, it's very difficult to change and try shift. Or like there's so much that has changed in that organization to up that customer experience. When you're a startup,
Absolutely.
you get to build those principles in from the very get-go, and that becomes your advantage moving forward.
Absolutely. And those are key. Those are the key differentiators. And it's also understanding the market, right? I mean, it's, right at the bottom, you've got price is your biggest lever. Right at the top, it's customer experience is your biggest lever. In the middle, it's both. So that's our target segment. So, we're going after a consumer who wants great customer experience, but is also price conscious. So we've had to get it all right? If you're going after the top guys, you can charge a premium, and then you have a premium service like a private banker and these kind of things. At the bottom end, you just go price, and the pricing the day works. We're not going after either. We're going into the hard part, right, which is the middle class segment.
You got to do both.
We got to do both. So it's hard, but that's a promise we've made, and it's a promise we're keeping. And it's the discussion I have with the team all the time, is that we're busy scaling. How do we make sure that we never break those promises? And I think the way to do that is the culture, and that's the only way we will win in this space, is to never be too arrogant. So, to those words, customers are not stupid. Customers are just customers, and they have something in their head, and we must take it on board. So that's key. And then having a culture where you can actually bring that information back, re-engineer it, and then push it back out. Because one of the big challenges of big organizations, right? Those amazing insights happen every single day, but it's to that teller in the 4,000 stores on the ground. The ability for them to get that information all the way up to the top, or where it needs to get to, is just impossible. So it tends to just stick around there. And that's why your best CEOs, like take a guy like Elon. I mean, he'll be on the factory floor because he wants to hear the information from the guys on the ground. And that's going to be one of our biggest challenges, is to make sure that we never lose that feedback loop, because that's what will allow us to stay ahead of the game.
Well, I mean, that's also, again, another thing we were talking about offline was you mentioning Jeff Bezos's like first day thinking versus second day thinking, and the way what I relate to that is it's like that's essentially the difference between having someone that is an entrepreneur versus a professional manager. And because the point is that the personality profile of a person who is a professional manager is someone that's also very good at being a COO. Right, is like, I don't like risk. I can't stand waste. I love optimization, love things being in their own place. I like predictability. I like a bit of certainty. I like to measure that. Versus an entrepreneur and an innovator, I'm the antithesis of that. I want to break things. I want new things. I want to disrupt. If it's like high risk, high reward, visionary in terms of thinking, but also the mentality and the approach towards that. And I don't want to just over equate the CEOs, because you get very good CEOs, very like great in the detail, great with customers. So like, let's not attach it to that. Let's just stick to the personality point that I'm making. But the thing is that I've chatted to people that are heads of ops in COO are great for CEOs to when it's an established business, right? It's an established business model with a decent amount of market share, where it really is about optimizing and profitability. And focusing on new business units and new markets, you still need that entrepreneurial mindset. But this example of Elon and this example of Jeff Bezos is that day one, that first day thinking of being agile, being quick. You've got to be able to get out there. You can only do so if you're in the midst of it and you understand it. And so the difference there is that with professional managers, people there is like, for them, it's around their jobs and what needs to be done. They might care very much about the company and the industry and their customers, what's going on. But the entrepreneur is like, it's all wrapped in their identity, and it is in their nature that they are at the coalface. And that's why I love working with founders, because it's often a different mentality to what you experience in larger organizations with people that aren't naturally entrepreneurial. And I'd actually like to just segue all of those beliefs and assumptions into you, because you've done both, right?
Yeah. But for me, it's step one is culture, right? It's building a culture. So I mean, I can, like, let's take my MTN journey. Um, I got there. It was a couple of acquisitions that MTN had done, and I came in there to fix it. And day one, when I walked in there, and my predecessor was on the ground, I said, "Listen, please do an introduction of all the staff." And we were walking around the office, but he was skipping people. And so I was like, "Well, stop!" Like, but what about these guys? Like, you're not introducing me. He says, "Oh no, those are just staff." I was like, "Look, just stop." So basically, what he was saying is that the staff don't count. You're going to introduce me to the managers and the people, the senior guys. So I said, "Look, stop. Thanks. I don't need any further introduction to the rest of the guys. No handover required." It was 5 minutes. I was supposed to be a couple of weeks. I was like, "I don't need any more." And that's where it ended. And I called a staff meeting. I said, "Guys, I need to meet every single one of you. I want a one-on-one with every single one of you." And this flattened the entire structure, respect across the organization, make sure everyone is paid properly, looked after, etc. And the rest was history. Right? I mean, it wasn't rocket science that I did there. We went from the worst ISP in the country to the number one ISP in 18 months. And that wasn't because of what I did. I just fixed the culture. That's all that I fixed. I mean, obviously, with the process and other things, but the key thing that I fixed there was culture. And I think a startup is culture again, right? I mean, this example today that I mentioned where, my staff member mentioned that, customers are stupid. I can have the hard conversation with them, say, "Listen, guys, it's not how we think." And I challenged them because they were like, "No, but it was this hard conversation." But have the hard conversation, the candor to say, "That's not how we treat our customers. We treat them differently." And once you can have that conversation, it's great. I had a marketing meeting earlier in the week and the guys presented something. I said, "Guys, I hate it. Like, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I hate it." So go back and rework it. Now, I've been working with them long enough that they get it. They're like, "Okay, fine, we'll go and rework it." So it's that ability to have like an honest conversation that's meaningless, right? Because my guys don't sit in the corner like, "Oh, geez, are our jobs on the line now?" and that kind of stuff. No, I just hate the idea. I don't hate you. Just hate the idea. Move on. Like, that's fine. So I think, for me, it's I hate the saying, culture beats strategy, eat strategy for breakfast every day. It's an absolute truth. And I also have this belief that, you chase the bottom line, right? You're trying to optimize profits. If you have the right culture and motivated staff, they will look after your customers. Your customers will then pay and won't churn, which will increase your bottom line, right? You don't have to worry about the bottom line. So it's kind of reverse. Everyone else is worry about the bottom line, screw the customers and screw the staff too. And that's the way you'll make tons of money. And I totally don't believe in that.
Well, it's inherently wrong. I mean, for me, that's the plague of Milton Friedman economics coming through. And it's essentially everything needs to come down to shareholder value. And the point there is, like, if you're trying to optimize the results, you are going for a lagging indicator inherently. And to your point around culture, it's like the simplicity for it for me is that if you want your people to be adding value, the simplest way that you do so is you make them feel valued, right? And that's it. As if I feel valued as a human being, then I'll likely contribute and add value. And to your point there is like, not just around caring for customers, giving a good experience and making their customers feel important. If they're naturally engaged and they feel cared about, human beings are we have evolved to be problem solvers. If we encounter problems around us, there's inefficiencies and things that we need to solve. Naturally, I'm going to take ownership for that, and that's going to improve your net profit because you're going to build it in better efficiencies. They're going to solve problems. But if I don't feel valued, it's like, I don't care. Not my issue. It doesn't improve my day-to-day life to try and solve this. I'm not going to get treated any differently by my manager, right? I'm not going to feel valued by this culture. So what's the point? Versus the opposite, if I feel valued, you're not doing it for the sake of getting recognition from someone else. You're doing it because it's like, I actually just feel like I want to solve that problem.
I just care.
Yeah.
And I'll, there's a customer at the end of this line who's not happy. They haven't got to what we promised. I must fix it. And they go and fix it. I know we see examples of this every single day. And Hillopeter is a great place to go and sort of like look at this stuff. Please thank X because they did such an amazing job and they cared for us, etc. Now that's not something I specifically said. You better care for this customer. It just happened. Now it happened because we treat our staff with respect, etc. Now, I think on that, this is a hard one for a lot of people. Is that we're also pretty hard on staff. And what I mean by that is you either fit into this culture where you're an adult. So I treat all my staff as adults. So that's step number one. You're an adult. I don't have children who work for me, so I can't police your time, and I won't police your time. I can't police your hours, and I won't police your hours. I won't police your work. But if your work's not up to scratch, like there's another place for you. It's just not with us, right? So I believe in that intrinsically because your weakest link will always bring you down. So we push guys who do care, and then it's the rest is history, right? The rest of the staff, we attract people that then care. Our hiring policy is very simple. The guys walk in there, and it's people who care, and then we make sure that if someone's not performing, you always give them a chance. But if they don't want to deliver, that's fine. There's a couple of other places for you. And I think it's finding that balance. But culture is key.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. It's actually interesting. We share very similar values. Literally, one of our explicit values is candor, and then the other one's accountability. And the way that I view accountability as well, it's like, and just again, the simplicity of, like we mentioned now, around if you want someone to add value, they must feel valued. But also, if you want someone to behave like an adult, you should just treat them like an adult.
Treat them like an adult.
But that goes one with the thing of, it's like you're going to take responsibility for your stuff. But two, if you don't, there's consequences, because that's just how adulthood works. And
adulting's hard.
So, adulting's they're definitely not easy. Before we go down this rabbit hole, because obviously, I mean, this is by profession as an organizational psychologist and people, and like you're really getting me in my sphere of passion and interest besides entrepreneurship and strategy. I want to take a step back down to the fact that it's that like I want to blend in the founding story, but then also the product market fit, right? It's like, how did you find, let's do the product market fit one first. Let's work backwards. We'll talk to the founding story then. But how did you find product market fit so quickly in 18 months? And how did you know you had it?
I think so my view on sort of starting any startup or disrupting any industry, a startup versus disruption, is one, the industry needs to be big enough. And the problem that needs to be solved needs to be big enough. And in this case, it was both. Right? The industry is massive, 200 billion rand a year, and we can all agree that the basics are just not there. Customer experience, products, flexibility on the product side. So we were very comfortable that we understood what the consumers wanted. So I think we launched with a little bit of hindsight in mind because we understood what we were looking for. But then it was just about failing fast. The point I made earlier around something that might have been before we started was on a build your own plan product. So we were first part. We were like, we're going to launch this. We're going to sign up 1 million customers in the first year because it's such a game changer. It's completely customizable product. Yeah, absolutely. And
our product's so amazing that our customers are just going to come.
They're just going to come. And we've just changed the whole industry because no one else is doing this. So, we launched with this build your own customizable product with all the things. And, the research we had done, everyone was like, we love it. We love it. We love it. What we've never done is not ask those guys, okay, well, now build one. Because that was the missing link. No one knew how to build it because they didn't know how much the data they utilize, how much voice they utilize. So we built this amazing product, but the consumer didn't have the inputs to actually go and build it. So what they were doing is they were taking our pre-built packages, and we couldn't understand. We were like, but this product's so amazing. Why is no one buying it?
Our main differentiation on a product level, and no one's using it.
And no one's using it.
The customers must be stupid.
They must be stupid, right? And it's taking those kind of insights and saying, well, okay, there's a problem there. What are we doing wrong? So it's the failing fast, and then realizing, look, obviously it's not the product because customization, if you know what you're using, it just makes sense. Oh, got it. Nobody knows the inputs to customize. All right, great. So we have to go on that journey, and now we're starting to see the people sort of customizing more. But it's I don't know if you've ever read Yuri Levine's book. He's the founder of Waze. His book's called it's Focus on the Problem, Not the Solution. All right? Because like, what are we trying to solve? Better mobile. Our solution was the build your own plan. Like, we had to discard that. That wasn't the solution. So go back and find out how are we going to solve this? And it was with products that were pre-packaged, but added more value. So that was our first thing. We had to do that first and then give the visibility. And once we got the visibility, then the build your own plan would work, right? So just going back, and every single thing we did was when it failed, we're like, cool, we thought that was a solution. Give up on that is the solution. What is the problem? Let's fix the problem. So I think, to answer your question on how we found product market fit, it was not being scared to fail. And then when we did, it was going back to solving the problem and not the solution. And not being hell-bent on the solution, right? So I think, versus we could have gone and said, okay, we're going to change this build your own plan, and we're going to market the hell out of build your own plan, and just that be the solution. If there was a bigger underlying problem, that's education and information. And once we understood that, we could now move forward. And it's not to say, like I still say, that solution in the next 5 years will be our hero product. I believe it. But it's not the solution for now, because we haven't done the education job and customers don't have the information. So it's a timing issue there. But and I think that's going to be how we stay ahead, is to make sure that we always are solving the problem that we started out on day one when we were set to build this company. And that was disrupt mobile. And it's hard because, the amount of times that we get pulled into, well, let's just go traditional. And it's so easy to do that. Let's go and do what everyone else said. Let's go and put scratch cards. Let's go and put ourselves into the fuel stations. And it's, and you've got the traditional guys pulling you there. And there's this, and intrinsically, it's the wrong solution, and it won't work. Because, and I think if I take a segue here, why have so many MVNOs not worked? I think personally, it's because they've taken a brand and copy and pasted what the big networks have done, with no differentiation, no innovation, and maybe a price differential, but ordinarily not even that. So how are you going to compete against?
You are literally taking them head on that their own game.
Taking them head on.
You're going to lose that any day of the week.
Every day of the week, right? So every time my team, myself, we feel we're not doing well enough, and we could go and do this. Is to put yourself back and say, that's not the solve. The solve is something completely different. The solve is we don't have enough sales channels. Cool, got that. Let's go and fix the number of sales channels we need to. But it's not to say now we need to change the product to look more like the current product sets. So it's being very, very vigilant on those kind of things, because you'll trip yourself up and eventually say, where was the core idea of what we were building versus what we've actually got.
Yeah. I just want to pause in our story that we're having right now, just to tell you a bit more about why we're doing this podcast in the first place. Why did we start the Founder Files? So obviously by day, I have a business that I need to run. The Founder Files is not yet at the point of being its own profitable business. I'm not exactly Stephen Bartlett. But the point of the reason why we're doing the Founder Files is that when it comes to being an entrepreneur, right, if we want advice, we'll pay for it, or tell me how you did it, and I'll cherry pick those lessons and apply them with my own business. So obviously the experience shares, getting those lessons from other founders, is why we do this podcast and why you probably come and listen to this podcast. How can we take this wisdom from other founders and how can I apply it to my business? And the whole point of the Founder Files is to give established entrepreneurs like you practical stories and insights from people that have been there before, so you can avoid years of trial and error in scaling your own business. That's the entire philosophy of what we do and why we do it. Now, this links to the greater philosophy of Metavolve. And Metavolve is, our purpose is to accelerate the time it takes to build a great sustainable business. Our mission is to ensure that as many entrepreneurs as possible can take a holiday where they actually switch off whilst their business keeps growing. And our vision is to create a world in reality where more SMEs are able to thrive independently of the founders that started it, by transforming how businesses use strategy to scale. So that's us in a nutshell. This is our philosophy and where it's aligned, because we really are promoting that vision of creating amazing businesses that aren't dependent on the founders, because we want to create a world where not only there are more amazing and successful entrepreneurs that build great businesses, but they're also present parents, they are present with their friends, and they're just healthy human beings that have the time and the capacity to really just live a balanced life. And for me, and for us at MedEvolve, this is exactly why we do what we do, because we're trying to create not only healthy businesses, but healthy entrepreneurs, right? And if this is something that resonates with you and something that you are in pursuit of having a healthier balance between your business and your life, then reach out to us. This is exactly what we do. Let's have a conversation to ensure that you have got a bit more sustainable balance in your life and your business. That's it about MedEvolve for now. Let's get back into the practical stories and insights. Okay, so you've given a lot of insight in terms of the how part, like how you got there, which is great, because specifically focusing on the fundamentals and staying true to who you are, and not trying to copy the people that you're inherently trying to disrupt. Like, you're not really disrupting someone if you're doing what they're doing. That's like the opposite of it. But how did you know you had it? What was that moment that you kind of like woke up, you looked at a spreadsheet, you maybe looked at your Zero account or whatever it was? How did you know you had product market fit?
Customers resonating with the product set and buying it, right? It was when our sales weren't just doing this, it's when they started to do that. And it was, every iteration, we'd launch this new product and it would do this, a little blip, and then it'll go back to flat lining, if you want to call it that, just above flat lining. And then we'd do something different and a little blip, and you can see, and look, that's the hard thing is to understand early adopters versus true traction. And the second we move from, the early adopters, loving this new fancy thing and that you'd built and it, all the cool features that were, to people actually saying, I love Melon, I use it every single day, it's been an absolute game changer, etc. We're like, okay, we've got that now. But I can say that journey never ends. I think, I was talking about Yuri Levine, and I would read that book. It's an absolutely amazing book. But he talks about the journey in ways that, they found product market fit, but the amount of times that changed. So they had the baseline there, so they had the fundamentals, and they got that right. But from then onwards, it was constant iteration to make sure that they could get the masses to adopt that product market fit. And that's the hard part. And that's what we're having to continually do. I mean, we often ask ourselves, but why is everyone buying this specific product? Well, funny enough, it's because we push that product down your throat all day. So, you would have thought, right? So, we're like, why is everyone buying this product? Well, it's what we market. Now, it's our cheapest product and everyone's buying it. We're not, why is everyone going for our bottom end product? Well, it's the only one we market. The others are available, sure, but we don't market it. And so there's these kind of stupid nuanced things that, are so obvious. And it's the one thing that I'm cognizant of every day, but it's hard to do, is wood for the trees. Because you're so stuck in it, you so understand your product, you know why you built it. You forget it's the why for you as the consumer. It's the why for everyone else. I understand the why, but I'm articulating that why to anybody outside of ourselves. And that's the hard part.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, what you speak to there, so it makes me think of exactly this morning. I was kicking off with a new client and their leadership team. They're having a leadership offsites, but the problem was, once we started engaging with them, it was kind of like too late. And it was like they've already had the agenda and all the flights are booked. So instead that they just tweeted into like a problem solving thing. It's like, hey, Cam, you're going to come do the kickoff session in the morning and we'll do the strategy development afterwards. But the main point there was specifically around market positioning and competitive advantages. Like you can't have growth without sales, and new customers. That's obvious, right? But the point there is, it's like understanding the problem that your market's facing and specifically getting that out of the founder's head and getting it into the team that are then going to go and get more customers, and knowing that. There's a difference between being able to look at what my value proposition is on my sales deck versus really unpacking and segmenting the market and knowing what the market is what they need, knowing the difference between your market segment, your customer segments, what their specific pain points are. But if it boils down to the point of I can develop empathy for this human being, knowing exactly what they're going with and what they're trying to do to meet their needs besides buying from us. I know what they're going through, and therefore it's no longer me trying to shove a product down their throat. It's about the fact that it's like, I know that you're trying to solve this problem. How can I help you do so? more rapidly.
Exactly.
And it really is that download of understanding that problem beside, and it's that why you started it, but it's the so what in the mind of the customers. And it's that it's
Absolutely.
that difficult journey of transitioning that out of your head into your team and then into the minds of your customers.
And then it's the education part on something brand new. So you get the so what. They're kind of like, okay, I understand where you fit in and why I need to have you, but how? I mean, I'll give you a great example, right? I mean, the how in our industry is you're either going to one of the mobile network stores and you sign up for a contract. That's the how. Or you walk into a retailer, you buy a SIM card, Eureka, put it in your phone, add some airtime, and off you go. That's the journey. Now, and if we don't explain how to Melon, with us you have to sign up. You build your own plan, and then it's all this customization and stuff. But the journey is so much different to the current journeys. But we did so badly at articulating that. So customers understood the why and the benefit and the USPs. But then the acquisition side of it, the how, it was, okay, but I want it. Okay, but how do I get it? We just go onto the website and all the app and sign up. Okay, but how? It's that nuanced sort of thinking, that an education that you completely sort of underestimate or overlook.
Completely. And while you were talking, what you've inspired me to do is bring up on my second screen here. There's just a couple of questions that we ask around customer experience, because customer experience isn't just around customer service or user experience that a lot of people think about in tech. It's really the entire qualitative experience that a customer has from you from every single touch point of your company. And to your point there is you can have an incredibly clear value proposition and knowing what the value is, your customer can get it. But that point now is well, how do I buy? And you're like, oh shit, I didn't even think I'd get this far. Okay, cool. This is how you do so. But there's a couple questions that we've identified. Well, not identified. I mean, it's been pulled from someone else's work. That someone else very specifically, if anyone wants to know, Matt Watkinson in his book, The 10 Principles Behind Great Customer Experiences. But there's questions here is they're obvious ones. And so this is what I love about simple questions is they require significant contemplation to answer properly. Do we actually satisfy our customers' needs and wants? Does our promise leave nothing to chance, and is it fact-based? Do we set, meet, and even exceed customers' expectations? Does our offering give the customer better control in achieving their objectives? Is the company and its products easy to deal with? Does dealing with the company eliminate confusion, uncertainty, and anxiety? Is dealing with the business an emotionally positive experience? Do we cultivate meaningful relationships with our customers? And my favorite, does our business give our customers positive benefits and make them feel good?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's so simple, yet 10 things that should be on every single company's wall.
Oh, sorry, I didn't actually read. That was 9. The 10th one is, does our brand reflect the customer's identity, beliefs, and values? That one's a lot more complex in my mind.
That is harder. But it's an important one as well, but just as important. I mean, just thinking about it now, it's just as important. Because if you can get that right, and you've got that emotional connection to those other 9 items, you've got the Holy Grail.
Exactly. And I think the point there is that this is what true customer centricity looks like. Because the point is you can say, yes, we need to optimize this process, or we need to cut this thing out because there's build efficiencies, you can do it for margin, but you think about yourself. The point there is by answering these questions, the answer is not necessarily process, product, technology, whatever it might be. The answer is about the customer's experience, and then what you do becomes pretty obvious afterwards. And I love that because it's just a constant and ever prevailing why and so what behind every decision that we're making when we're looking to improve something. And that is an absolute game changer. So, Calvin, final question that we didn't really get into around actually getting the context of the business, because I love the fact that this has been a quintessential fireside chat, and we've taken the topics and run, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this. But we still have lots of scaling topics to get into. But obviously now, we're basically halfway through the podcast, haven't even heard the founding story yet. So talk to me about your founding story, why you started your business.
So, look, I was at MTN, I mentioned that. And we actually, while I was at MTN, one of the things I looked at was, I could see while I was in the organization that, mobile needed disruption and what was happening in the rest of the world. And what we saw was that there were a lot of primary telcos building digital sub-brands. So in the US, Verizon bought Visible. In Poland, Orange bought Flex, and so on and so forth. And there are lots and lots of examples. So my vision at the time was to build a sub-brand for MTN. So, because disrupt those primary telcos is just so difficult, and it's lots of reasons. It's a cultural thing. It's systems. You've got lots and lots of legacy systems that you now need to pull together. Their products, customer sets. There's revenue dilution, and lots of other complex sort of things that need to be taken into consideration. So the view was to say, can we build a digital sub-brand? So went through the process, and it was right around the time of COVID. And look, COVID for everybody was a nightmare. All capex projects were pulled out of MTN, and yet I still had this burning desire. I was like, this is still a good idea. I think telco in South Africa is still ripe for disruption, and I think it needs to be acted on. So I, just after COVID had sort of ended and everyone's going back, I decided to take this leap, and I resigned from MTN, had a 6-month restraint, and in that time, started to put the building blocks together. So, I think
that also explains the accelerated product market fits. Besides the industry knowledge, you had 6 months to just do market research and planning.
Absolutely. And, I think it's something we said earlier before we started was, thank goodness for naivety, because I wouldn't have started this journey if I knew how hard it was going to be. But
sorry, but before you continue, I had this thought that I just want to drop in now. But it's an extremely reductive metaphor, maybe not a good one, but it's a lot easier to get a puppy and teach them new tricks than try to teach an old dog new tricks. And I say that because trying to make a multinational corporate change in order to be able to adopt this, even though it makes sense, is so much harder than to just start it from scratch. I mean, and that's like, look, entrepreneurship is hard as it is like a startup's hard, but it really is the fact that it's like, do we go and change something massive, or do we just start it from scratch? And it's like, there's a lot less resistance on the one versus the other.
The only way that it's possible to do, and I mean, you've seen the guys who've done it well, is where you go and build an incubation hub, but that is completely separate to the primary organization, that has absolute autonomy, but then still has the deep pockets of the primary. That's the only way. And you look at a ShopRite X, the innovation that's coming out of that place, 60 being one of the big ones, right? But if they didn't have that and they tried to build that within the ShopRite group of companies, that would never have happened. Never happen. And certainly not to the slick sort of very impressive state that it is today. So absolutely. And there are lots of real reasons for it. I mean, it's not poor leadership, it's not poor culture. There are lots of real reasons as to why you shouldn't disrupt in a big organization like that, and that's why you need to spin it out.
Too many things need to move in order for this to find a place.
And then you potentially break other things, right? Which really should not be broken, right? Like the logistics of getting your groceries to your favorite store, that's complicated, and don't go now disrupt that. That's been working extremely well. Don't go and break that.
It's complicated to do it not for one, but having an organization that does it for thousands, if not tens of thousands at a time, you're not winning that battle trying to disrupt that.
Exactly.
At least internally. Anyway, but back to your story.
So, and then I went out to get funding. That was, of all the things I've done in this journey, that was the hardest. Because I was, in essence, people loved the idea. They loved the industry. They realized the need for disruption. But it was slideware, right? It was an idea. It was a concept. Yes, it had been seen elsewhere, but could I pull it off, right? And could we actually deliver on it? And that was the hardest thing out of trying to convince everyone. But yes, managed to get funding, and then the next one was tech, and to try and solve that. And I think that was a big wake up call for me, because the previous, all the other tech guys who'd done it, it was internal IT departments that had done and built the tech. So trying to go and find an off the shelf piece of software to do digital telco, it didn't exist at all. So, we partnered with a really big telco software company, and we co-created the Melon software offering, and that's where it is today. So, a lot of fixes and builds that we had to do along the journey, but we stuck to our core of, we want to deliver this. We are not going against, the basic fundamentals. We need to build a strong brand that people resonate with, etc. And those are key principles that we stuck to the entire time. I went on over 70 different funding meetings, right? And it was interesting in every single one of those meetings, just understanding, what are the nuances and what are people looking for and what are they concerned about. But if you can take those as learnings, the first 20 were catastrophic, the next 10 were better, the next 10 were better. And then, you eventually you understand how you need to deliver it and what risks you need to mitigate and so on and so forth. So yeah, that was the journey to where we launched. And we launched June 2023. And yeah, that's where we are today. So it's been a great journey. I mean, it's extremely hard, and we've had to tick a lot of boxes and, do a lot of hard things, which is typical in a startup, but we're in a good spot.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's also different when you've got spaces where technology and markets are so new that, like, I'm just punting on punts, like thinking about anything around generative AI, for example, and but more the applications
100%.
of it. It's like we have no idea where this can go, right? So we're going to back the team. But the point is, if you're disrupting a legacy industry and one that's extremely established, it's a lot harder to have a high risk appetite as a VC there, unless there's some clear proof of differentiation. But
Exactly.
Yeah, but also to your points around that, the 70 meetings and how useful is. So Mike Scott, someone else that's also been on the podcast, his business got acquired by Yoko, and he was saying that one of the best things that they did a due diligence and have it on themselves and have a data room like 4 years before they even started thinking about selling the business. And everyone was like, why the hell would you do that? And he was like, because like that's a painful process. And he's like, that's exactly why we did it, because you end up asking yourselves the questions and looking at the things that you don't want to look at, right? And so and at the end of the day, you just end up building a better business in the process of doing that. So Calvin, give me a sense of the scale that you're at now, right? So it's 18 months down the line, post product market fit, the industry super well, right? How big's your business now?
So, I mean, look, we've hit our targets, put it that way. So, we've ticked every single one of the
Lovely vague
boxes.
answer.
Yeah, customer numbers are our secret. So we've really done it. And this is hard in this market because, I will say we hit our targets that we set for ourselves, but we had these big, hairy, audacious goals, and we did not hit those. And I think, to be honest, for good reason. Because we would not have learned the lessons we did. And we probably would have wasted a lot of money and we wouldn't have done what we needed to do to get to where we are today. Now we are able to scale this business in a proper way. So can we make our 5% and 5 million in 5 years? Absolutely, is the short answer. So we're well on our way there, but now it's going to require every single one of the last 18 months of learnings applied and meticulously put together and executed on.
If we're not going to know your customer numbers, and obviously I'm not going to ask you what your revenue and profit numbers are, that would be a bit rude. How many employees do you have?
We've got 47 across the businesses. So, and look, of those, 30, just over 30 are customer service.
Sure. Okay. Just really shows the emphasis on customer experience.
100%. And look, we did that on purpose as well. I don't want an organization of 5,000 staff. We've partnered very smartly and we'll continue to partner smartly. So everything we do is it's like we're going into retail now. We're trying to partner with retail partners, like not trying to build retail. Technology is the same, etc. So, trying to build centers of excellence within the organization that then manage everybody else versus, trying to build that in-house capability. But there's certain things and ultimately, if you look at us, we're a sales and marketing organization at its core, a technology company post that, and then a telco is sort of a third level. And I still see, further down the road, telco, voice data, SMS is just one of the product sets. We could add insurance, banking, fixed line, or whatever else into the back there. Because if you've got a really cool sales and marketing and good tech stack, the product sets that you offer behind that are meaningless or endless, or a better word. So
as long as you're protecting the identity of the company and you're solving similar or adjacent needs, that you don't start confusing your stakeholders around what the company actually does.
absolutely. And yes, which there are lots of examples of, right? I digress, but like the whole super app concept, I absolutely hate that concept. The super app concept irritates me because people get it wrong, right? Have you got the banking right? If you haven't got the banking right, focus on the banking, but don't try to add 97 services around it. The banking app doesn't really work, right? Just an example. Or you've got a Pavel app and now you're adding other services. So it's totally agree with you. Lots of adjacencies. One, they must make sense, but two, the customer journeys have got to fit. All these guys offer travel as an example. Travel is very specific. Everyone's offering travel as this bolt-on into their super app. If you follow that journey, you're like, how on earth is this a great customer journey? So it's, spread out what makes sense, integrate where it makes sense, but don't do it just because everyone else is doing it. So anyway, back to the point. Those are the sort of 3 pillars. So sales and marketing, vice key. So that is internal. So that we're not outsourcing. Tech is outsourced, but we're slowly bringing more and more tech. So the key parts of the tech that makes sense to us, we bring that in-house, and then everything else will always be outsourced. So, our model and the only way to run a successful MVNO is low capex, low opex. So, the second you have high capex in this industry, we're in trouble, and then high opex, we're even more trouble because we one step below the MNO. So, we buying wholesale and selling retail. So you've got to be very cost conscious on your opex line.
100%. This just brought up a plethora of new questions I wanted to ask, but there was one that I still actually haven't gotten into, and there's one that was I found quite obvious on the outside that I got super curious about. But how did MTN let you compete with it? Right, having been an executive at that company, starting off afterwards, but not just like letting you use their infrastructure to then compete with them. Help me make sense of that.
So there were 2 contributing factors. One was Icasa released the 5G frequency, the spectrum allocation, and as part of that, MTN, Vodacom, all the guys that bought spectrum had to open their networks to MVNOs. So MVNOs were no longer nice to have; they were have to have. A minimum requirement of at least 3. So that was a license requirement. So if you wanted to buy the spectrum for 5G, you had to enable MVNOs on your network. That was the license obligations for the spectrum. So that was tick box 1. And then the other one, you take MTN, has got 30% market share. So if you take that, I sign up 10 customers, right? I'll take 7 from the other networks, 3 from MTN, and I give 10 back to MTN. So in my scenario, MTN are always net winners. Yes, there's a wholesale requirement, but there's a 30% retail loss, but they're getting 10 back at wholesale. So, from an MTN perspective, they're winning on in my transaction. So it's important to understand that.
Yeah, so just to understand the basic fundamentals of this, because for me, like telco, and because it's invisible airwaves, it's intangible for me to materialize. I'm gonna maybe use a reductive comparative metaphor into something like property and real estate and rentals. But the point there is, like, you're essentially renting the space to utilize. It's their space that they're paying a license for in order to use. And so depending on your level of usage, that you're going to be essentially paying them rent. So the point is, even if there might be people that you've stolen from them or market they wouldn't access, the fact that it's worth enough for them that there's still the cash that they're able to deliver through the rent that you are paying in order to be able to use their infrastructure. And the reason why the interest is going to be there to MTN is because of the fact that you're going to bring them people from other telcos to utilize that. Am I getting close?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got to see it as a sunken cost, right? I mean, a tower that they put up in your area, and you can see those towers. It costs X to maintain run, whether there's one customer mapping or 1,000. And that's the reality. So, you know, if so for us, we give into customers with no sales, marketing, or other cost at all. They just get the customers, a pure wholesale cost, right? So, and in short, we're utilizing their network, which is free capacity, in short. So we're filling up that capacity layer. So I mean, it's like selling free tickets or empty seats on an airplane.
Okay, so I'm just trying to make sense of the business model here, just from the financial flows, because it's like I 100% can understand that from a capacity perspective. There's room for people to come on here, but it's just, so let me, instead of making assumptions, ask a simple question: the number of customers utilizing this network and infrastructure that you have, do you pay MTN a percentage per customer in order to be able to deliver them your value proposition product?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Okay.
look, the model works pretty simply. I mean, it's back down to its smallest denominator. So we pay on bits and, well, it's megs and seconds and SMSs. So it's onto its lowest increment, in short.
Okay, so essentially you're going to be paying MTN for usage, right? So you charge your clients for their contract, and then whatever's actually used and utilized, you charge what
Exactly
MTN will then
right.
charge you. Part of your value proposition is about the fact that you're not trying to squeeze that gap and that margin as wide as possible, but you're getting your clients to have these contracts that are way greater than their needs are, because then essentially you're just having more profitable customers. You're actually, as a customer experience to them, it's like why pay for more than what you're using, right? It's like, it's within our pricing model, and the fact that we're a low capex, low opex business, that we can still be profitable whilst you get to benefit from the lower pricing.
100%. It's exactly it. So it's smart productization, low capex, low opex, smart platforms, etc.
Okay, so I want to understand how you got sales and distribution rights, and the fact that you have not been aggressively marketing. I think you have a very cool marketing campaign that we're going to talk about in a bit. But just in general with B2C, is a huge proportion of it is usually going to be brand awareness and inbound. And a lot of it is going to be marketing driven, and there's a lot of expensive campaigns. But the point is, you're also talking about a sales function in this. So talk to me about your outbound, inbound mix at the early stages in essentially getting your product out there and getting customers.
Look, in the first 6 months, it was purely digital. So it was typical Meta, Google, etc. Getting the product out there. There was no out of home or anything like that. It was purely digital. So we're a digital brand doing digital sales. And look, the misnomer there is that you can throw endless amount of money at social and digital, search or other paid platforms, and the customers will just come. It's not the case, right? You still need to do the basics, right? You need to build the brand, you need to build the trust, you need to have the right product, etc.
You be well positioned to the right customer segments and market their needs. They need to be able to see themselves and their problem being solved by you. It's not as simple as like, hey, who's got this product? Buy it.
Exactly. And I think that's, so for the first 6 months, it was just, how do we do this digitally? Building the brand awareness, so top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. How do we get the conversions? Are the products right? Trust was the biggest one for us to solve in this entire thing, because you're basically saying, listen, buy my mobile product, put your credit card in, and trust that I'm going to deliver the service. It's going to be a good service and it's going to work. I don't know if I do trust that. So that was one of our biggest challenges, is to overcome that. And that's where our billboard campaign ultimately was born out of, is to say, how do we, well, there was 2 campaigns. So we came up with the challenge is that we had a trust deficit. Cool. We knew the people who were buying loved the product, but there was too much drop off. And when we went and understood and did the research, the drop off was trust. I don't trust you to give my credit card details. I don't trust that you're going to deliver the product. I don't trust that the network's good, etc. So the insights that we got from various various companies out there, various examples, was we need to build a physical presence. So yes, we are digital, but we need a physical presence to show that one, we are real, that we do exist, and that we can be trusted. Now, throwing up a couple of billboards in Joburg, an example, where there are thousands, you're just going to get lost in the clutter. And also bearing in mind that the big mobile networks spend between 2.5 and 3 billion rand a year on marketing. So, if we're going to cut through the clutter, just in general, never mind the clutter of telco, it's a hard job. So I put the challenge out to the marketing team to say, look, if we're going to do this, we have limited budgets. We're also doing a test, so we need to figure out, how do we go about this? I need a super disruptive out-of-home campaign that's physical, that can show people that we exist, but then also gives trust. So we launched at the time a product called, it was a 14-day free trial. So we understand you don't trust us. Test our network for 14 days for free. Typical Netflix, Showmax model. Never been done in telco though. So, very, very unique in its delivery from a telco perspective.
And funny thing is, it's the MTN network, which is with Melon Mobile.
Yeah, but there's a trust thing, right? It's like you're saying it's MTN, but is it actually MTN, right?
Yeah.
And is the customer service also? Because that's the biggest question. Yes, you're on MTN's network, but are they actually giving 100% quality of service, or are they throttling you, etc.?
Yeah, and then also, if I'm going to use this, am I going to be put through to MTN's call center? This just sounds like MTN with extra steps.
Exactly. So, the MTN link has both its positive and negatives. And we learned that as well, so anyway, so we then did what we called the billboard takeover. So we had 9 different brands that we worked with. So the likes of Fuffies, he launched his some swimsuit brand. We had Courier Guide, Feltskoen, Rassie Erasmus, the Springbok coach. He launched his new book. Espresso Show, Celestine Tooley, etc. A couple of guys. And we put their billboards up for 2 weeks. So 14 days.
Just to be explicitly clear to the audience, you paid for this. You went to them and be like, we're going to put up 2 weeks of free advertising for you.
And they chose their billboards, right? So it was actual marketing that was in the market. So it wasn't some fake thing. It was real. And then after 14 days, we put a Melon sticker across all of the billboards with, like Rassie was, hey, coach, give us a try. Everyone gets a 14-day free trial. Espresso Show was, giving 63 million South Africans a chance to try, etc. So it was these pretty smart sort of takeovers, but it got us a hell of a lot of awareness. And that's what was required. So it proved the point to us that was lacking, and that ticked the box as well. Say, okay, that worked. Because up until that point, a lot of guys are saying, yeah, it's not outdoor. Outdoor doesn't work. It's dead. Outdoor's dead. Post-COVID, no one looks at billboards. There was a lot of this sort of
bad advertising is dead.
Exactly. Smart advertising needs to come back, right? So we proved the concept. So, we did a 3-month trial on that. We took out, I think it was about 50 billboards, cost us a fair amount of money, but that's all we could afford. And we put these out there. But it made a massive difference because suddenly, in Joburg anyway, we had an audience that could touch us, see us, feel us, and trust us. And our sales were not. So, we now understood that, that close link between digital and physical is so important. And I'll take some insights out of other digital brands and what they're doing is consistent message we're seeing. And a good example is Yuppie Chef. I mean, you might have seen how many Yuppie Chef stores are opening. And Yuppie Chef was digital, online, sort of home cook. That was its signature, right?
Yeah, until they were acquired by the Mr. Price Group, they were an e-commerce business.
And their founders, I've spoken to the founders, and they're like, that was one of the missing links. They didn't want to ever go into retail because they were like, that's not what we do. But they've now seen what retail does, right? It's the complementary aspect where someone says, I'm going to that Yuppie Chef store. I can touch it, feel it, see it, but they don't have the color I want. So I'll go onto the online store and buy it there. Retail is changing, and we're seeing that. We've launched our our retail footprint. We in its first stage, we got one mall, but that the
Congratulations.
ability. Yeah, thanks. What we're seeing there is the number of signups where people are like, sure, we were so keen to sign up, but I wanted someone to hold my hand. Interesting one, right? I wanted to make sure you're real. We saw that you're in Cresta, so we came across to Cresta, right? So, we're proving that this purely 100% digital thing works, but you do require both the physical and the digital aspects to really land the product. So, and I think it's back to the point, right? We're not stubborn about our thing. We had this view that purely digital, we're only online. We're not too stubborn to look back and say, oh, cool, we need physical as well. And we did the trial. It's been exceptionally well received. So we'll start to do more physical stores. So yeah, that's where we are, and that's how we've got there. But it's been a journey.
Yeah, there's two thoughts here. It's like, firstly, the one about the retail presence. I want to go repeat one of the questions from earlier, but does dealing with the company eliminate confusion, uncertainty, and anxiety? And the point there is, like, it's kind of hard to predict in terms of human nature, because inherently those are all irrational emotions. Emotions are inherently irrational. Once you understand how someone got there, like, there's some logic to why the emotional reaction was there. I'm not going to go down that psychology rabbit hole. But I think the point is like the fact that it's like, okay, cool, I get this. But the point there is like, we need to reduce your confusion, anxiety, and uncertainty in order for you, because you want to buy from us, but you just feel uncertain, anxious about it. But I just also, again, want to just reflect on the consumer psychology of what you did with that marketing campaign that I thought was so brilliant, because it's multifaceted and multi-layered. Because on the one thing, it's an immediate attention grabber. Right, so it's to see something that's like stuck onto another billboard. It's like, it's the same thing of seeing, like, you'll drive past billboards so much that it's like they kind of just disappear into your subconscious. See something stuck on there is like, that seems a bit aggressive. It's almost like graffiti in a sense. But it's like, oh, it's actually a company, right, that they're doing that. But then to do that is then they ask the question. Then you'll look at, but they're associated with that brand, right? And I trust them. Right, so it's like,
exactly.
How that, like, does Rusty know that this is on his billboard? And if he does, it's like, it immediately, it's a conversation starter. You pay attention to it accordingly. It's getting associated with people that South Africans love in terms of brands, and very South African, very trusted brands as well. So immediately, just by doing something small like that, attention, conversation starter, immediate brand trust and association through social proof, just because you've augmented it from someone else, whilst just trying to build it yourself. And then it's something that immediately sticks in someone's mind. So yeah, shout out to you and the team that put that together, because that's so clever.
Yeah, and what we found so fascinating is people's love for their specific brands, right? The other one I must have is Lyft Airlines. And Career Guy, we got a lot of flack on those two, right? It's like, how could you take over like our beloved airlines billboard? And it landed so well because we were able to talk, and Lyft would jump in on socials as an example and say, we just love what they've done here, kind of defending us. So it was
yeah, they have to, because then they have to defend themselves, because they can't say it's like, oh no, Melon's bad. It's because you let them do this to your billboard. Like you have to then back them up.
But what was so great is that, now it became this physical aspect, but then we turned it into a digital conversation, where, there's affinity for Lyft, but now we're in there. Now there's affinity for both brands, etc. So it worked extremely, extremely well.
Well, that's also just the lack of thing about billboard advertising, is that if you get it right, it's so very scalable through social. It's like, because that's where you start the conversations. You can distribute it so significantly, and it's, we all know that Pineapple is by far the best example of what they've been able to do in the billboard space. Next to Melon Mobile, let's see, until I get Inda on the podcast, and then I'll suck up to him about his marketing then too.
Got to give them credit. They've done an extremely good job there.
Okay, so Calvin, I think there's like one more thing I want to unpack before really getting into the current scaling journey. But you mentioned and strike this framework of thinking, like, sales and marketing business first, that's first priority, then the tech, then you're a telco. Again, as we spoke about it offline, is like, I can obviously intuit what that means. It's a strategic priority, but just talk me through why it's so important for you to separate those as a business while you're growing it.
So, we're building a brand at the end of the day, and customers need the trusting. And if we focus on being a telco upfront, what's the differentiator, right? You're selling voice, data, and SMS. You can buy that from 20 different vendors right now, whether it be the mobile networks or the other vendors. So there's no differentiator in that, and the product is exactly the same. It's not even a nuanced version of it. A bit is a bit and a byte is a byte. There's absolutely no differentiator. So we, trying to compete at that level just doesn't make sense. Technology, sure, but I think building a technology company, I'm super scared of at the moment. And you brought up AI and various other things. I think there's a lot happening in the tech space. So I want to keep that technology layer very fluid, because I think there's a lot of disruption. As long as you keep it fluid, we're able to. Brand, on the other hand, that can't be fluid. That's the one thing that cannot change. That's got to be strong. It's got to be trusted, and it's got to have a true emotional connection back. If we get that right, the tech platform, how it works, etc., will be less meaningful. The product set behind that voice that is less meaningful, right? So that's got to be the core of what we're building. It's the hardest thing to do, though, because building a brand, MTN and Vodacom been here for 30 years. They built that brand over 30 years. MTN is the most valuable brand in Africa. You're competing against them. So building a brand is exceptionally hard, but it's worthwhile doing in the space because the industry is big enough and you can build a brand that can resonate. And I think your example of Pineapple makes it another good example where, with the right sort of emotional connection, you can build a brand. So for me, that's just important, and I think if I go back to sort of any startup, if you cannot sell the product, you can have the best product in the world. If you cannot sell it, it's as good as not having a product at all. So, I've always believed that sales and marketing should be the lead for a startup anyway. Yes, you need to have a good product and all the other things behind it, but I think sales and marketing is always key anyway. I think in this industry, and I will say, we kind of thought that product could potentially straddle the brand thing, so we wouldn't have to do too much on brand. Yes, we'd have to build brand, but the product would kind of take us through. It's definitely not the case, right? We built amazing products. Customers still want those very key things. I want an affinity, I want an emotional connection, and I need trust. Those three things we have to get right. And we've got some of them right, but not all of them.
And that's the nature of brand at the end of the day, is that it needs to be something that's super predictable. And I think this is one thing that's quite tricky for many entrepreneurs. We're so innovative and we can get bored quite easily. We get the shiny shit syndrome, and we want to get new innovation and go for new ideas. But what many people can forget is that from a market and customer perspective, you need to be so predictable. You need to be so consistent. I need to know this is what I'm going to get when I come to you and what I get from you. This is why I trust. And that's before we even start talking about brand narrative and brand voice and like brand identity. This is just the consistency to really get the foundations of trust within the market. And if you start disrupting the identity by you start having all these different products or in these different verticals, you start creating this confusion for the market. It's like, oh, who are you now? Like, what is it that you guys actually do? And you might not notice it. Your customers might not notice it. But what that is going to result into is it makes it a lot harder to buy from you, because it's not as obvious as it was before. So really, I think that's the point. Is you can keep it. This is where brand's very complex. But it should never be complicated. You keep it very you should keep it very simple. But you should acknowledge the complexity that takes the bulk. That's the thing that I love to say, is that, simplicity before considering complexity creates confusion, but simplicity after considering complexity creates clarity. And so knowing that's also gives an indication of the difference between complexity and complicated.
And I think just on that point, it's the golden thread that in brand that's often missing. You do it, and to a point, creating confusion and complexity. You jump around with this product and that brand and this idea and this slogan or whatever else. It's not what people are looking for. They want absolutely consistent message. They know that whenever they look up, let's take Nando's as an example. You know exactly what you're going to get from those guys every single time. And And that's consistent because, the product's going to be the same way, the brand delivers the same way, everything is in a consistent fashion. And it's super simple. There's nothing complex about what they do, but they do it in such a consistent fashion that it's delivered so well.
Well, and even on that is like they could have the best marketing campaign ever, but if suddenly they took this informal, tongue-in-cheek, very satirical, humorous approach, and suddenly they started becoming serious and a bit more formal in their narrative, nothing changes in operations at all. Nothing changes in the food, nothing whatsoever. I guarantee you that's going to impact a massive amount of trust in the marketers. Like,
Guaranteed.
I don't recognize you anymore. I don't think I'm going to buy from you.
Guaranteed.
So, Calvin, let's talk about the present right now. I mean, like 18 months into the journey, you are way further ahead than most people survive, to be honest, let alone many other people that are still actually trying to unlock their growth. So just for the record there, kudos, well done. Entrepreneurship is really hard. And you seem surprisingly well rested for someone who's got a 47-person team from zero to that in 18 months. But yeah, I guess to use the sleep points, right? Tell me about the scaling journey you're at now, but specifically, what's keeping you up at night?
It's scale. It's how do we take 18 months of learnings and turn that into real growth, right? It's a conversation we had just before we started. In the early startup phase, it's lots of tests, trial and error, failure, learnings, etc. Fast, agile. We're now at the point where we've got to be very strategic. So it's saying, we're not saying have a 5-year plan that we stick to by the book, but it's to have a 6 to 12 month plan and how to scale. And it's, the scaling plan is simple. It's brand awareness. So build a brand that, South Africans resonate with, but it's also visible, right? We've only done marketing in Joburg. We now need to expand it and we need to increase it. But keep the golden thread throughout it. So that's one. Then how to get Melon. Right now, you can only get it online. We need to give you more physical, plus one store. We need to give you more physical ways of getting it. I was talking about the, retail stores and fuel forecourts. The ability to walk into a forecourt and see a Melon SIM card. That has to happen.
Especially because the prepaid market of this country is absolutely massive. Not this country, this worldwide.
Yeah, well, it's 70-30, right? I mean, it's contract to prepaid. So
I didn't know that. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, but I mean, even your contract base, right? I mean, even a guy who wants, we call ourselves the Netflix for telco. So you're on a contract, you've got a phone, your contract's up, and you're like, well, listen, I don't need to renew this phone, but I want to go month to month with Melon. Where do I get a SIM card? I have to go online, I have to order it, etc. Whereas I actually want it today. Like some people are impatient. Well, cool, go to your local retailer or whatever else, pick it up. No, I'm the same, right? So we have to get that right this year. We didn't do it on purpose because, once again, I didn't want thousands of SIM cards. They're expensive in lots of retail outlets, and then we had to pull them out and etc. But we're at the point now where we can now go into retail and we know what we're doing. But like the retail journey as well. Like, how do we go into retail in a different way? I can't just go into retail. I mean, something I keep telling the team, you've got a plethora of SIM cards if you walk into any retailer. So what is going to make someone take out
the revolving thing? Just pick them.
Yeah, there's red ones, yellow ones, orange ones, blue ones, etc. And all the other colors. Now, what's going to make them take the green one? So the point is, don't just go into retail in a smart way, but that takes the brand identity and pulls it all the way through, right? It's like that smart takeover that we did on the billboards. It's keeping that same thinking, smartness, disruption into retail. We've got to do it in everything we do. So, and that's the hard part, is to say, cool, we're now going to spend real money getting out into the market. How do we make sure that we spend it wisely? How do we take all the learnings into account and then keep to our brand? So we will always be slightly edgy. We're always going to be disruptive, and we're going to stand out. And those are the key things. So 3 key things: more channels, more brand visibility, and then 3 is more consistency from a messaging perspective. So that's on the scaling side. And then from a tech side, we really do understand what works and what doesn't work, and what we've done well and what we've done badly. And we can now we're busy fixing those things. So it's taking the journey as it stands today, small optimizations, and making sure that we get that right. It's so key because no one's doing it, and then making sure that more smart partnerships. I think to your point on partnering with brands where there's great brand equity and trust already. So if I trust, say, Lyft Airlines as an example, and Lyft are offering a Melon SIM card, well, I can trust Melon and make it super simple to get that Melon SIM card via a Lyft channel as an example. So it's all of those mechanisms. So I think, the scaling side is always sales and marketing. And it's making sure that we are both physically available and, easily, it's much easier to receive. I think those are the key things that are, that's the focus for 2025.
Sure. Yes. Okay. So from my side, there's 5 theoretical categories to grow towards growth strategy, and no wonder you are being kept up at night because you just listed 4 of them to me. So obviously there's organic growth, right? So you're going to be investing into your core market using your own resources and your own products and improving the tech that you have and selling to your original channels accordingly. You're going to go horizontal integration, which the whole purpose of that is to scale up faster than you can through organic growth, and that's through partnerships, right? You're going to go through Lyft and you're going to unlock it there. You're going vertical integration because now you're going into retail and you're going one step closer down the value chain towards your customers, and you're opening that space too at the same time. And then also you've got geographical expansion because now you're not just focusing on Gauteng, you're now trying to go countrywide as well. That's a lot. So I guess that's the question of like, how are you executing that right now? How are you planning to manage that execution without driving yourself insane?
It was all built last year, right? So we're doing small things. Like I say, we got one store. It was making sure we got that right. Lots of learnings. We got a lot wrong, obviously and naturally. But we've taken those learnings and now we've got 9 in the pipeline and we'll open those 9. So and out of those 9, we'll learn some more lessons. But out of that, we'll then say, okay, cool, now we need to know how to take this, and then we'll do proper scaling off the back of that. So it's, we've got, like for instance, I'm a firm believer in taking specialists. Like, I'm not a retailer. I've got ideas on retail, but I'm not a retailer. So go and find a strong retailer to take our brand into retail. And that's what we did, right?
So just be clear, do you mean that's a strategic partnership, or is there someone that you're hiring internally to be able to take this?
That's someone we've hired internally.
Okay,
both. It's both. So someone we hired internally, but it's because retail is it's its own animal, right? I mean,
it's its own industry.
It's its own industry. I mean, it's where back to MVNOs which have gone wrong. You've got bankers running telcos, you've got retailers running telcos, etc. Whereas why? You should have telco people running telcos. They can be in a retail environment, but they should have a telco background. Anyway, so it's hiring specialists in all of those fields so that they understand the lessons. They've learned all the lessons, because I don't need to go and learn. We've learned enough digital telco lessons, and that's the lessons I wanted to learn. I don't want to have to go and learn the hard retail lessons and the other scaling lessons. So it's getting the smart people there, and then just making sure that our capital is, well utilized or better utilized than others, and making sure that our cost of acquisitions are low. Those are the key things to focus on.
Yeah. This made me think of a quote that I heard from someone else that on the podcast the other day. It was the donkey long tongue guys, actually. It's the thing to get right in business, if you want to have a successful business, is the 5 Ps. And that's people, 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 and people. And so I love that, actually. It's a full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning around culture change at MTN too. Yes. I really want to just unpack that quickly, because how are you going to be executing this is you've got someone who's handling the retail space. I mean, obviously you CEO are going to be overarching the overarching strategy of the business as well. You handle them to manage the execution, handle the tactical strategy of how that's going to be navigated, right? What about the other growth pace? It's like talking, because I made the assumption that you obviously, you actually said it explicitly earlier, that you're going to be expanding outside of Gauteng as well. Do you have someone focusing in different geographies? And then I guess same thing in terms of Like obviously you've got your own tech capability internally. You mentioned customer service and experience. But what about then strategic partnerships? You can have someone with business development that on you. So yeah, talk to me about your team structure and how you handling that.
So, I mean, look, up until now, I've done most of the business development, which is, and I think it's key, right? So I keep saying that the day I let go of product development, we're in trouble because this business was built around the product, right? The key differentiator. So the day I hand that over means that we've gone to day two thinking. We now think we've got this, we've ticked the box. We no longer need innovation, and we've,
You become complacent.
we're complacent, right? So products, if I don't always own it, I'll always have the final say to make sure that we stick to our core. But smart partnerships, I've done everything today, but we've now hired someone to actually run that. So they and it makes such a big difference because it was a percentage of my day, so it just really wasn't gaining that much traction. You put someone whose day job it is to go out there and do it, and they're doing it all day, right? You end up going to 1 out of the 10 meetings, and there's some real traction on those things. So it's someone focused on retail, someone focused on smart partnerships, someone focused on call center and other channels, someone focusing on digital marketing, someone focused on marketing in general. So what is the overarching messaging, etc. And then just making sure we pull it together, right? So it's I like to see myself as the voice of reason and the wood for the trees, right? So I'm actually taking a further and further step back because it's the only way I can keep everyone honest. When I was stuck in the weeds, I'm just as bad as everyone else, right? We missed some of the key challenges. From a pure product perspective, we made a couple of mistakes, and it's because we're all too close to the coal face. So, this year I'm specifically taking a bit of a step back, because then I can actually see it. Like, geez, guys, walk into a store. That doesn't make sense, guys. Why are we doing it like that? But why? Because we've been going away from our core truths, right? So, very clear on why I'm doing that. So yeah, it's an exciting phase because it's we've got super smart people doing the groundwork, but I'm still able to be keep us honest.
Two things I want to say to that. Well, all very familiar with the whole points of structure follows strategy. I think something super insightful that I got from Nick, who mentor, shareholder of the business, who we get our IP from, part of our board, that he said is, are you structured for strategy? And I just love that because, that can be interpreted in many ways. Is the fact that it's like, one, do you have the people, do you have the structure that can actually, one, strategize in itself? Or are you too operationally focused? But also at the same time, is like, have you got the structure that will allow you to now focus on strategy too, but also allow those people to be able to be strategic too? And it seems that you've already done that within your management layer, management structure of the people that are reporting to you, which is kudos to you.
Thanks, man.
Sounds awesome. It sounds super clear. It's like, not only because there's the strategy, here's the structure, but you really are structured to do so. And that speaks to the next point. Is again, it's still blowing my mind that you're 18 months into the journey and you're already now starting to think about your own planned. This is the only time I'm a fan of planned obsolescence, but when it comes down to the operational involvement of the founder, you've baked that in early, and it's more about how is it that I can be able to step back and let other people do their jobs properly, and see the wood from the trees and guide in a strategic role. And I think that's super exciting, and it's making me very excited for the second round of when we do a round 2 on another podcast. When you have scaled and now you are countrywide and you have become that household name and household brand that you aim to be, and then we'll unpack what you did to get there and what life is like. At 33,000 feet, and that's, I guess, another nudge towards Lyft to point that out. Anyway, before I start indulging myself with too much poetic license and trying to bring in too many puns at the same time, Calvin, thank you very much for being on the podcast. It's been a joy to have you here, and it's been incredibly insightful and really inspiring and enjoyable conversation. It's been really stimulating. It's the word that I've been looking for.
Yeah, Cameron, I appreciate it. It's been a great chat, and you promised a good fireside chat, and I think it's been pretty much that.
So the last question that I have for you is, what's the one question that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you that you'd like to answer now?
I think it's the one thing that a lot of people ask is work-life balance. Um, it's you know, and I think it's the hardest thing. And well, one, I don't think it exists, and I think people place too much emphasis on it. I think in the early days of a startup, you shouldn't have it, because it's not possible. And I think uh, people read too much, or the Instagram memes going around about, a 70-year-old who's telling you should have work-life balance. Well, at 70, maybe you've now got that right because you've made your billions and you've exited. But I can tell you, in the early days of startup, it doesn't exist. And I think it doesn't matter what stage you're in. I think you've just got to be less hard on yourself in terms of those kind of things. It's I think there are enough pressures out there to focus on, and it's to say, we're at this stage of the business. I require 80% of the time on the business. Next year, like now, I mean, I'm stepping further and further back, and it's just part of the journey. And I think it's it's an important thing for everyone to just sort of not get caught up in the memes and all this, caught up in reality.
Very profound, honest, and candid way to end this episode. So, Calvin, thank you very much. I guess I was going to say see you in a couple of years for round 2, but Kevin, your rate to see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, look, I'd love a week, but a year or two.
Says Calvin. I really stand by what I said at the end of the podcast there when chatting with Calvin about how he's not only got a structure that's following his strategy, but he is structured for strategy with the team that he has around him. Because to engage in this amount of complexity, where not only are you organically growing your business in your core market, you're obviously investing in your tech and your products, but whilst you're developing these strategic partnerships with these established brands, be able to distribute your product more quickly through them and build that trust. And then at the same time, is like whilst building a retail presence, which is just entering in a whole nother industry and complexity, and doing that while you're also expanding across the country. It's just so much. And the way I like to say it quite often is, we as the founders can handle this level of complexity, but, can our businesses handle this complexity right now? And the fact that he's structured that way, I think there's a lot of hope, there's still a lot going on. And I love this authenticity, because we even chatted about this offline afterwards when we were just debriefing. And he said, as a solo founder, this stuff is tricky, hey? So, to have the right people around you. And he even said he doesn't like the word mentor so much, because it brings up this thought around this like a person with an MBA but doesn't actually really get it. But just having the people that you can chat to that can really unpack your thinking, that I thought was very true, right? And it's a big reason why we do what we do, because we just like to be that person that can have a bit of empathy, understand a bit of the journey, and kind of share some of this path with you, but also just have your thinking challenged, right? So I think we all know that we're quite confident in our thinking, but we appreciate when someone can challenge our thinking properly. So yeah, I think what Calvin's doing is awesome. I think him as a solo founder and having that space and engaging with other entrepreneurs is the right thing to do. So if you want to do that as well, if you want to reach out to me, if you want to have a chat about what it's like scaling your business, you want to get some perspective for me to challenge some thinking, have a reach out. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know that you've connected with me through the podcast, and hopefully I can help you get a little bit more clarity on how you're going to scale your business. But until then, thank you once again for listening to another full episode of the Founder Files. Absolutely love the fact that you're here till the very end. Really reinforces why I love doing this so much. So yeah, please like, comment, share, follow, subscribe. It's the best way to support us. It's the best way to also help build and contribute to this ecosystem of entrepreneurship in South Africa, to get us to collaborate, to help us take out all this trial and error in scaling our business and just make it one bit easier to be an amazing entrepreneur building great businesses, which is what I fundamentally care about at the end of the day. So thank you very much, and I will see you at the next one. Cheers.